Hi guys, my name is Patrick Juranek and I'm founder and CEO of Startup Disrupt, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here at this amazing online conference which we are hosting for no code, low code, and it wouldn't be possible. My name is Patrick Juranek and I'm founder and it wouldn't be possible for us organize events like this without our partners and sponsors and people who are supporting us on this journey, and as well without amazing list of panelists and moderator for today's event. Without further info, I would like to give a word to Philip, who is from Microsoft for Startups, who is supporting us for today's session. So Philip, you have a word now.
Thank you, Patrick, for the opportunity to be part of this very nice event. Good evening, morning, and afternoon. It depends on where you are. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I joined Microsoft 14 years ago, and all the time I worked with partners who develop and sell software to their customers. Last years, we discussed mainly topics related to cloud platforms. By the way, this is a very nice topic because the decision which piece of software will run on-prem and which will run in cloud is not a topic related only to techies who are responsible for architecture and DevOps. It is also a very strategic topic with clear impact on business and the way how to address opportunities on the market. Cloud topic is also the opportunity for architecture design, and very often we discussed, for example, custom code or specific connectors and how to shift workload from core developers to other teams, outsource it to partner system integrators, or even to customers using low code and no code platforms to increase flexibility of the solution itself. So I believe that today we will hear a lot of valuable insights which are relevant now. Nowadays in Microsoft, as Patrick mentioned, I'm focused on partnership with startups, and I'm looking forward for this event and having interesting meetings with some of you later on. Enjoy. Back to Patrick.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you for your intro. And right now, the main event. So I would like to give a word to Wu, who will be the moderator for today's session. Wu is a co-founder and CEO of successful platform Avocode, and with him we are going to the stage and other speakers like Patrick Šimek from Integromat, Tom Osman, Emmanuel Straschnov from Bubble, and other guys. So Wu, now stage is yours, and you can introduce the panel and other guys. Enjoy.
Thanks so much. Thanks for the introduction. So good evening, everyone. Welcome and thanks for joining me today at this amazing online virtual event. I'm going to be your host of this event tonight. And I know it looks like we're sort of like floating here in space, but I don't know how about you, but I'm actually tuning in from my living room. To introduce myself, so my name is Wu, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Avocode. Avocode is a platform that helps thousands of teams of designers and developers around the world to collaborate and build digital products faster. Our mission is to make design more open and more inclusive. And although Avocode is focusing on more of the traditional workflow of designers and developers, today's topic is definitely in line with our vision of making the design more open. I'm actually a designer. I used to be a designer. My background is in design. And 10 years ago, when I started designing websites, the first website that I've ever built was using Dreamweaver and Flash. I didn't know how to code, so that's the only way I could create a website. By the way, I'm a terrible developer today, and I would definitely not hire myself. But the point is that that was 10 years ago, and today I'm really excited to see what you can actually build today without writing code, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today, about no code. And I have four amazing guests joining me today, Patrick, Tom, Gonzalo, and Emmanuel. And to begin with, so would you mind introducing yourself with just 2 to 3 sentences, Patrick?
Hey guys, I'm Patrick. I'm currently CTO and a co-founder of Integromat, and I've been a developer for almost 20 years. And I started to get bored of doing things the old way, coding stuff. So me and my colleagues, we started working on something that we thought is going to change the world, helping people to integrate microservices across the world with the no code. So that's how we started Integromat, and I hope that you like what we built. So, hey.
Thanks. Tom?
Hi, I'm Tom. I run the education team here at MakePad. I'm former product manager, also terrible coder. Actually tried to learn back in the day after building tech teams and then not wanting developers to pull the wool over my eyes. But yeah, it turned out that I was terrible developer, and then it's a good timing that this whole no-code tools started erupting as they have, so timed it well. Yeah, my job is basically to inspire people as to what is possible without needing to code.
Thanks. Gonzalo?
Hello, everyone. I'm Gonzalo. I've been a developer for, 10 years or more, and then I moved to product as a product manager. And when I moved, I wanted to do the stuff that I did as a developer, so build products and stuff, but without the code. That's how I stumbled on no code and started No Codery to help people to not only learn and find how to do stuff without code, but also find a job or a gig and help someone that doesn't know how to do it themselves. So I'm co-founder of No Codery.
Thanks. Emmanuel?
Hi, good evening, I guess, everyone. I'm here in New York. So originally from France, I started Bubble. I'm CEO and co-founder of Bubble, but I started with Josh in 2012. So we're one of the earlier players in the space, actually, of the new wave of no code. And we started the company really because we're in New York and a ton of people wanted to start companies around us without technical talent. And they were looking for engineers. And we just felt it was sad that all these people wanted to try things but couldn't do it. And for the last 8 years, it's pretty much been the same thing that we've tried to do. I mean, we're still trying to empower people to build products in general, but more specifically to start companies, because I think this is pushing, this is a frontier we're really trying to break, creating products that, can scale in production that people can actually rely on to build their entire businesses. And it's great to be here.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you all for your introduction. So the first question that I've prepared for you is going to be the same for you, and I'd like each one of you to answer that. So I'm going to quote the beginning of the no code video by Webflow. And if you haven't seen that, it's amazing. Go check it out after the event. Today, worlds run on code. Every text you send, every website you visit, every screen you swipe, it's all driven by code. So what exactly does no code mean to you? Patrick.
Okay, great questions. The no code means that there's a platform full of great engineers and great people who actually spend their lifetime building code to allow other people to actually be able to no code. So we had a partner here, and he was like, "Hey guys, I really like the product because I can be lazy, and that's because you are not lazy." So that's what no code means for me. It's like there's a lot of code under the behind the scenes that actually drive the no code platform, but we give people the possibility to actually start their businesses without thinking about the IT development, without spending resources. That's the no code. That's speeding up the development, speeding up the industry, and making people who are not so technical be able to reach out to people across the world.
Thanks. How about you, Emmanuel?
No code to me is enabling non-technical people to do things that would usually require code in the past. And so that can be applied in very different settings, actually. Like we chose web applications, but you could do native applications. Like there are a lot of spaces where people used to be writing code like 10 years ago, and today they don't need to create things, basically. The one thing I would say, though, is that it's presented as a revolution because we went from code to no code. But if you look at technology in the long term, it's actually a very natural evolution. Like technology since the beginning of software engineering, like 40, 50 years ago, it's all about, having a high level of abstraction each time that is easier to use and therefore has more people using it. So if you go back in the days, like where people were punching cards literally, or then assembly language, it was very complicated to use, and you had to be working at this, in a computer science lab to be building things. And then, you had basic C and some even JavaScript or these kind of languages, and more people could use it. No code is just the next iteration on top of that, which just happens to be without code, but it's still programming. It's just a high level of abstraction, and each iteration, I think, increases the number of people that can use and create things by 10. So this is the last iteration. So it is a revolution because it's from code to no code. But in the grand scheme of things, it is a natural evolution of technology.
Thanks for giving that thorough view on no code. I think that's a really great explanation of how no code should be perceived. How about you, Tom? What do you think?
I don't think I could answer any better than Emmanuel, because he's been out of all of us in this game the longest, so he's probably answered that question the most. But yeah, for me, in its the simplest form, it's just a layer of abstraction that sits on top of technical products that allows non-technical people to use them. So that's all it is. Like Webflow is just like an abstraction layer. For non-technical people, you don't need to know what happens under the hood. I mean, you can if you want, but yeah, it just lets averagely technical people build cool stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's really amazing what these tools let you build. We'll get to that part to see what you can actually build with these tools. But before that, Gonzalo, what do you think?
Well, it's really hard to add anything after these three great explanations. So that's it. Is a layer of abstraction.
We'll switch orders.
Yeah, exactly. It's layer of abstraction is a way of people without any technical knowledge to build cool stuff. It's a new wave of opportunities to the ones that never learned to code or never wanted to learn to code or failed to learn to code, now to build stuff. And there's a lot of people that fail that and are really seeing opportunity right now.
Got it. Yeah, I failed to code. That's probably me. So I should get going. Anyway, thanks for the explanation. And don't worry, I have prepared different questions for each one of you. So no need to change order, or you can mix that up. But I do have a set of questions for each one of you. So we've been talking about no code, but Patrick also mentioned low code, and I'm curious. What is the difference between no code and low code? And I know that there are some, but for the audience, would you mind explaining, Patrick?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this recently, and since I'm a CTO, maybe a bit more technical. But imagine you have an editor for a text where you can make your text bold or make your text underline. That's actually something that's totally no code. You can actually put your hands on the editor and make the changes by yourself. And on the other hand, there's a code, which means then you can code it, for example, in HTML or other languages, the same result. And the low code is something in between. It's something that gives you the possibility to drag, drop things, actually use a lot of cool stuff to create rich text content, but also gives you possibility, for example, to put interactive objects or elements or iframes. I mean, those kind of things that you can use to extend to a certain level, but still remains super simple to maintain and create. So basically, the low-code platform for me, it gives me like 90% of the stuff that I usually do, and it does it for me. And there's then 10% that I need to code myself to make it unique, to make it special for my use case.
So just to clarify, do you think that you actually have to be a developer to use a low-code tool, or if you're not a developer, you go with no code, and if you are a developer and you want your work to be more streamlined, you would go with low code? Would you mind answering that question, for example, Tom?
Yeah, I think the way I think about it is if something is built as like a no-code platform, then usually it's the majority of the functionality is available for people who have zero technical knowledge. But there is in some way the ability to augment that with code. So I know like Bubble, for instance, is a great example. You can be completely non-technical and build with Bubble, but also you could be technical and use Bubble to build out, say, 80% of what you're trying to do, and then that last 20%, like custom functionality, like API calls, then you can augment your app with code. I think where low code, if someone builds themselves like a low code platform, it almost flips that on its head. So you'd probably, as a non-technical person, be able to use, say, 20-30% of what the platform is designed to do, like with zero technical skills. But really, if you want to get the most out of that platform, then you're going to need to know at least some technical knowledge, or at least be paired up, say, in like a larger business unit with engineering on site as well. So I think low code tends to lean towards the like the business unit side of things that can utilize non-technical stuff as well, whereas no code kind of does it the other way around.
Got it. And then I'm curious. So Emmanuel, you mentioned that you mentioned before that sort of like no code is like an abstraction layer on top of code, and it, you know, obviously it still runs on code,
Right.
but my question is that Webflow and Bubble obviously mimic how the code actually works. And I've been working with Webflow for some time before, and I know that it is very similar to what CSS does, for example. But how about like tools like Wix or Squarespace, where you can Shopify, where you can just without code create a website? How do you look at that? What's the difference, and what do you think about the differences like between tools like that, and how the user should look at it?
I feel bad, honestly, for Squarespace and Wix that they're not part of the no-code thing, because in many ways, I think they're more no-code than a lot of other no-code tools. The thing that's important to see is that it's a continuum, basically. And that's why it's hard sometimes to no-code now is kind of a word that people use to describe, like, as soon as the primary medium is not typing code, people call that no-code. It's a little bit of a catchy phrase now because there is some buzz around it. And so because of that, it can be a little bit complicated sometimes to look at the different tools in the space. And what makes it even more complicated is that it's a continuum. And I think the axis is flexibility against learning curve, usually, or flexibility against abstraction from code. Usually, the closer you are to code, the more flexible it is. And so Squarespace and Wix, to your question, are further from code than some of the other tools. Therefore, they're less flexible. But there's still no code, because you can definitely get a website up without code. So now there is some things that is more, I think, of a media thing, that because they're older companies and bigger, it's not as fashionable, and so they're not part of the movement. But fundamentally, they're part of the same space. They're extreme on the spectrum, where you can do too much in terms of flexibility, but you get something a few minutes and you don't have much to learn. On the flip side, Bubble is probably on the other side of the spectrum. It's probably the one that takes the longest to learn, but you can do the most. Webflow, a little bit closer to us than it is to Squarespace. Shopify closer to Squarespace than it is to Webflow. It's a little bit challenging. I think with time and education, and as the space becomes more known, then people will start seeing a little bit more clear. What's certain is that we all have the same goal here, which is, again, empower people to do things without having code as a primary medium.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And thanks for explaining the differences between Wix and Bubble and Webflow, and how does that work? And talking, just to summarize, does that mean that sort of like Webflow and Bubble is maybe a little bit longer to learn, but you get more and more flexibility into what you can build versus like Wix and Squarespace, for example, right? And talking about learning curve, I'm curious, Gonzalo, what do you think? How hard is it to start learning to use Bubble or Webflow to build something? Do you think it's going to take months, weeks, days, or how long is it going to take for me to build the first website?
Well, that really depends on the person and what you want to achieve. I can give my personal experience. When I started no code and wanted to build no codery in no code, I ended up trying Bubble and feeling like I was learning a new language, a new programming language, because you have a steep learning curve. You have to learn how to build stuff, how to put it on there. But then when you get a hang of it, it's really easy to work and easy to customize. And I think that's it depends really on the person. If you don't have any technical knowledge, it's good to start from another tool like Adalo or stuff like that that has more strict rules and strict plugins and stuff like that. So it's easier to just drag and drop and have stuff built, other than Bubble that gives you, like Emmanuel said, all the possibilities and all the possibilities to change and everything like a no-code tool gives, and like Webflow gives you, and now with the CMS too. So it really depends on the person and the background. Like if you're more technical, it's easier to grab and start from there. If you're not technical at all, you should start like another tool easier, like a card or Adalo or stuff like that.
Yeah, got it.
I think the great thing about these tools and the fact that they're all a little bit different in terms of how powerful they are versus how easy they are to learn, they basically accompany you on your learning journey. Like you can start with some of the less flexible but easier tools, and then without even knowing, you don't become a software engineer because you don't write code, but you start understanding better how building product works and even how the web works a little bit. Start being familiar with, what is an API, which is already a fairly technical term, but even though you can manipulate them without being a coder with Integromat, Zapier, Bubble, these kind of tools. And so slowly, as what we see that people start on the simpler tools, and then they start, getting a hang of it, and then the learning curve gets faster. For someone that doesn't know how to use, that is not familiar with what an API call is, or these kind of things, on Bubble, we've seen people, it can take a few weeks to get. The one thing I'd say that, no pain, no gain. Like at some point, don't believe people that tell you there is no learning curve, because maybe there is no learning curve, in which case you can't do much. Again, that's a trade-off.
Yeah.
Got it. Thanks for answering those questions. I think it's very exciting to hear that it's not going to take you years of college to actually start building something like you maybe have to with coding. So that's really amazing to hear. But I'm curious, what actually can you build with tools like this? I know that imagining building a simple website or a simple app, it's very easy to imagine. But what are other examples of things that you can build? What do you think, Patrick?
As an integration platform, we are currently connecting hundreds of services together. So we've seen customers creating scenarios which we don't even understand internally, which means that some of the customers are connecting the normal stuff. Like if you have a new submission on your Typeform, then you would like to get notified via email or Slack, and those kind of basic automations. We've seen people creating chatbots with a full logic, since Integromat is pretty complex in what you can build. So you can create even automated reply or a bot that will guide you through an ordering process. We've seen these use cases as well. And we are also powering the whole businesses. We have a partner who built the whole company with just 2 engineers, and this is a huge German company. And those 2 engineers are just taking care of maintaining the scenarios. So, it was always difficult for us to actually recognize who are the ideal customers, what are their use cases. Because since the platform is so open and you can create so much stuff, it's really like, as I told on the start when I spoke, like we are learning from our customers what can be built on our platform.
Thanks for answering that question. And I do have one more follow-up question to that. What is the most surprising, maybe strangest things that you've seen someone build on your platform?
Okay, so we in our office, we have integration that every time our CI/CD platforms creates a build, if it fails, we have LED lights across the office just blinking with the green symbol when it's okay and the red symbol when it fails. So this is probably the weirdest. I have one more, but I'm not sure if I can share.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that. So we talked about sort of what you can build, and I personally have built stuff. I've built a CRM system for my wedding last year using Airtable. Um, and we're heavily using Notion to build internal apps for internal documentation processes, stuff like that. So there's certainly a lot of examples, including the ones that you said. But are there any sort of like limitations, operating limitations, in regards of the scope of the functionality that by using no code in comparison to regular coding? Tom, what do you think?
I think the main one that we've run into and what we've seen people run into is speed once you reach a certain point. So obviously if you're building everything hand coded, like the app running quickly, no matter like what sort of load it's under, unless you're using like millions and millions of rows of data on a crude database, then it slows down. But I think using no code, depending on which platform, obviously, let's say you're building on one of the simpler platforms compared to something like Bubble, you may run into speed issues, which then if you're using it, you may notice compared to using an app that's built like with code. So I think, let's take, for example, if you're running like a Webflow site and you're using Zaps and like Airtable to power like the backend, etc., and utilizing the Webflow CMS, so you're using like publish and creating live items and then syncing between the two, then you're going to start to notice, once you're having like user generated content, for instance, a lag in like the response time of creating something and it displaying on the page, or taking an action and getting a response, just because you are like tying multiple tools together. But then if you're using like an all-in-one platform, say like Bubble, they will have mitigated this like for the last however many years. But say if you're starting out building without code and you're linking several tools together, like speed may not be an issue if there's like 5 users using it. But as soon as you've got, say, a few hundred users like logged in and creating user generated content and trying to share and trying to update the profiles, etc., then you're going to notice the speed lag. And then you might start thinking about, okay, this is probably why we need to like migrate our backend or a certain portion of the site, which is actually slowing things down, over to a more efficient database using proper like a backend for your code, or a backend code base. Sorry.
So does that mean that when I'm starting out, maybe with a website or a simple app that I've put together, maybe my wedding CRM, I could monetize that maybe. Do you think that at some point I'm gonna end up with like turning that into regular code, like because of performance issues? What do you think, Emmanuel?
I don't think so. It depends. It depends on timing a little bit, and it depends also on your design choices. So the challenge we have at Bubble is it's so open-ended what you can do, that if you know what you're doing when you design your app, you can actually make it fairly efficient. If you make poor design decisions, and it's our job to try to educate the user, either through content or sometimes some automated tooling telling them, hey, don't do this. This is going to be bad. It can be pretty slow. Like, over the years, I've seen users do crazy things. On Bubble, you can have as many elements as you want. I saw some users with 1,000 elements. If you have 1,000 elements on the page, it can't be fast. Like, there's no way. And by the way, if you're to write code, that would not be fast either. It would be more painful to write 1,000 elements. It's faster to do copy paste in Bubble, but it would be pretty much the same thing. Now, I'm not going to say today that functionality-wise, I don't think we have many limits today, given how open-ended it is. I mean, you could literally clone an Airbnb website on us. I'm not going to say you could do the same scale, though. With the years, those things get better. Like, that's probably 80% of our development time is to try to automatically optimize the patterns, the performance for the 80% of the apps we see, because most people tend to make the same design choices, which is a good news. That's why platforms have a future. If everybody were to do something different, it'd be crazy, but they don't. Most people tend to do the same thing. And so we do that, we try to optimize. And the good news is that when we optimize it for one person, then we optimize it for everybody else, because again, people make the same design choices. So to your question, it kind of depends. I mean, if you get to an Instagram success overnight or Airbnb success overnight, you may have at some point to move to code. So two things. First of all, if that happens to you, great. You're pretty lucky. Second of all, it's quite unlikely it will happen. Like, I know a lot of people think the idea will take off immediately, but it turns out it's not the case. So actually, I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about it as long as it works, for your MVP and the next 3 iterations of it. That's, wait for the problem to happen when it's there. Now, I'm very much hoping that 5 years from now, I would not make the same response and just say, yes, of course, you can scale, to the limit. It's hard, but I don't think there's any theoretical limit why that should happen. It's just a lot of hard work, and hard work takes time.
And also, just to add to that, it's a good problem to have. So if you're getting to that stage where you're saying, oh, we've got so many users, our app's slow, then you're in a good spot. So don't worry about it.
Good. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I agree. Thanks for answering that question. And I guess performance is something, these tools will be able to solve at some point, I guess. So it almost seems like that I can build or start building my app, my next business, just using a no-code platform like this. Do you think that's that is possible, Gonzalo? Like, I don't need developers at all, and I just go with a platform like this, and I launch a product, and I run the business, and I'm successful.
Of course it is. There's a bunch of business starting with the no-code tool and like MVPs and stuff like that. And you can start small. You can iterate, like Emmanuel said. You can iterate. If you end up with the problems, they're like usually code problems. You'll have to get some coders on board, like to see how to make a proper database. Because if you're not a coder, you're not a developer, you don't know how to put a database, like, or primary keys and stuff like that accelerates, and how to build columns or how to build tables that connect stuff together. That's the stuff that an engineer knows how to do. So at the scale, you'll need someone that knows how to build stuff. I know that Tom would know how MakerPad had some problems about that lately. I saw on the Twitter. So that's it. They built their business on no-code tools and connections and stuff like that, and they see the problem on scale. So as you go with MVP, you should start MVP at 3 iterations, or if you have like 100 users or first 1,000 users, then you start to have the first problems, and then you maybe get an engineer there. So for starters, yes, you should go from there, even get some revenue, get some money, and then get some VCs or get some interest on that, and then from there you can grow. So you don't need an engineer or a technical founder or someone like that. You can just follow a course or go to MakerPad and learn there and stuff like that. There's a lot of places you can learn a no-code tool and start from there. And from there, with your idea or MVP, and I think that most important is not the idea, but test it out. And no-code is good for that. You can test your product and see if it sells, and see if people are interested before you have an engineer or an engineering team and stuff like that, and adding layers and layers of complexity on your company or startup.
Thanks.
One thing, if I may just add something, because we talk about no code, but it's exactly the same thing with code, by the way. Like if you make the wrong design decision when you design your app at first, and you will, if you write code, you will have some problem when you have maybe, 10,000 users or something, and then you'll do what we call a refactor. And so you rewrite and you'll redo it again. So because it's no code and it's a new thing, people tend to put a lot of the problems that are just inherent with building software products on no code, but no code is not necessarily responsible for that. There are a few things that no code offers that makes it a little bit easier probably to have slower things. There are a few things that are less optimized, but it's just software engineering in general. And that's the story of building a company or building a product. You start something, and then you reach a certain scale. You have to rewrite something to make it better, and you do. And everybody does that. Facebook does that every day.
Exactly.
Great answers. Thanks for them. And moving forward, I'm curious. It seems like that no-code tools are for makers, for people that are starting out. But I guess that's not really true. And companies and enterprises can also utilize platforms like this. So how do companies know whether low-code or no-code is what they could be using or what they need, Patrick?
I mean, that really depends on the expectations. I mean, if you consider a small to large enterprises, what usually is an issue there is that their IT department is busy doing stuff. So what they do usually is to figure out by themselves. I mean, the business departments, which is why no-code tools are so important in this segment as well. And we've seen a lot of examples on our platform, even from companies like Uber, where they put a lot of efforts into creating a prototypes of a working solution. And after they were satisfied with that, they came to the IT department with a working product, with the MVP. It was considered to be designed well, and they turned over to the IT department and built. They basically refactored, as Emmanuel said, which is important in scale. And also, where I see a great opportunity for no code are actually employees in big companies, and especially in these days when they're using so many different SaaS products, they need to figure out the daily routines, like copy pasting the data between systems. When a payment is processed, then put it on the Excel. It's insane. That should not be done by the person, but it's still in these days. So that's also a great space for improvement in those companies.
Got it. So small companies, single founders, starting out founders, big companies, all of them can be using no-code tools like this. And it seems like you can build, really amazing stuff on the internet using these tools. So my question is, where do I start learning this, Tom? And I guess this is a good question for you.
Sorry, was that for me?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Without giving like the biased answer, educational platforms that you could find by entering certain words into Google. Just like the resources are great. Just because I think what's really great about no-code tools actually, because it activates so many non-technical people, you're actually discovering really great teachers who can actually teach these tools because they can learn them, and then they're really good communicators. You're actually getting like a really good combo of the both because they don't have to be technical, whereas it's rarer to find someone who's really technical and a good teacher. Whereas we've seen teachers in like universities and primary schools, etc., or just people who make tutorials online, or just have like a good like camera presence and speak well. They learn these tools, are blown away, and then they carry on and they teach these to whoever their audience is, be it like children or students. So I think, you can learn so much through YouTube these days. You can obviously visit sites like Nocodery or MakerPad, etc. Even like Bubbles has some like great resources. All of these tools now, we're finding actually creating like unbelievable tutorials themselves. So I think the staple for this is like the Webflow University. I mean, that's what you can do if you've got like a big chunk of change in the bank and you got some real production value with what you do. But I think they go such a long way. We get like lots of messages every day with people saying, "Oh, I really appreciate your tutorial that you created like 6 months ago on this random thing." I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, amazing that people are watching it. So you can just find these tutorials online. But I think the best way to learn is always to just start. And I think because it's less intimidating to start learning no-code tools than it is learning to code, for instance. You don't hit that blocker until you've actually been able to like create multiple projects. So we have like a basics of no-code bootcamp where it's like 5-hour long pre-recorded videos like this, and I'm talking you through live building like 5 projects. So like a website, a mobile app, a database / CRM using Airtable, and then learning some automation things. And once you get through it, you've got 5 projects, and you could have started with 0 technical skills, and then you can kind of dive into what happens next. So do I want to dive into one tool a bit more that I really enjoyed using, or did using another tool like trigger a use case that I might be able to use in my workplace or for like a passion project? And then you start going down the rabbit hole and learning. So
yeah, I guess that's with everything. When you want to start learning, you have to start doing it, and by mistakes you learn, right? Moving forward, I do also have a question from the audience, and I this is kind of aligning with my questions as well. What do you think? Will the no-code movement kill code? Do you think no-code will replace designers and developer, or is no-code creating a new job category and qualification of its own? Emmanuel.
Yeah, I think so. It's not like no code is going to kill code. It's just no code is going to make code irrelevant for maybe 80 to 90% of the needs out there, so that the people that can code can focus on the 10, 20% remaining where they actually add more value. So it's just expanding the pool of people that can create things. I don't worry at all for software engineers. They will always find jobs. Like, let's be clear on that, because sometimes we hear, oh, you're trying to get the software engineers out of work. It's not true. Like, people that can write code will always find jobs. Like, it's a hard training. If you are structured in a way that can write good code, you will always find a job. And if I may, in fact, I actually think that's where one of the places where no code could have the biggest impact on the world is when you look at all the tech startups today that hire so many engineers. A lot of what they do is not always very complicated and seems very redundant and wheel reinvention. So look at in the US, Lyft and Uber, Deliveroo and DoorDash. These companies are pretty similar from a software engineering. They tend to solve the same problems. If I wanted to be a little bit like harsh, I would say they mostly differ with their logo and their name and their colors, right? And so the fact that all these companies have software engineers is actually really sad, because these engineers should be working on new problems. So if no code makes that, these companies, this kind of 80% of software out there that is pretty much a database, connecting people in some ways and some kind of user flow to buy something, so that people that code work on the 20 remaining, which is, I don't know, could be in the medical field where you need a lot of code, could be like in any kind of technical field where there is code. I think that could have a huge impact. So it's not going to kill code, it's going to make more coders available to do the interesting things. And I actually think it's an opportunity for coders, because the best coders don't like redoing the same thing again and again. It's boring for them. So let's actually free their time and have them work on more interesting things and have no coders do things. And there would be a huge job category, yes.
That means that making this easier is making innovation easier, and developers will have more time to focus on more important problems, right?
Exactly.
And following up to maybe what you said about Uber, Lyft, and Deliveroo, I guess what they're also doing in their scale is performance and scaling, and of course security. And security is something I also have a question from the audience. Is that what do you think about the stability and security of no code, like the results of the no code from a no code tool? Is it ready to be used by an enterprise, for example, in terms of the output, not the tool itself?
Is that to me or?
No, sorry, I already asked. So let's ask Gonzalo this time. Sorry.
Well, I think Emmanuel is more ready for this question than me, because he's running the no-code tool and he knows more about the security that they can have or not. So.
Yeah, I think maybe that's right. What do you think, Emmanuel?
I can jump in. We take security very seriously, especially because we have a few startups that started scaling that handle a lot of personal information. One of our earlier users is a personal finance company in the US. And so that's very sensitive. They store very sensitive things. So we take that very seriously. Now, do we have all, the certifications and, the compliance things that the large company would expect? Not yet. And that's why we don't serve that type of customers. So you have to understand security in two ways. Like, there is the actual security of not being hacked, and there is, having the right legal setting in place so that an enterprise can use you comfortably without being worried. It depends on the players. There are a lot of, in fact, in the enterprise world, there are a lot of no-code tools that we never talk about. Those are the other kind of people that we don't get mentioned, because they're just priced at a price point that is so higher compared to what Webflow or Bubble or Integromat or these other guys are, that most of the people in the audience would not know them. But so you have some no-code tools that have done that work, and then they serve the enterprise world. So it is definitely possible. There's no reason. One thing I'd say for Bubble specifically around database security, which is a question that comes often. There is some work that needs to be done by the user himself or herself. Like, we can't make assumptions when you create an application, because you're going to define your data structure of which data should be visible by everyone and which data should not. And so we have some tooling for that. Like, we have some things. So for the bubblers in the audience, it's called like privacy rules. They are super important. It's a lot of education from us, trying to explain people how to use privacy rules. So no code will not come with all things secure by default. You need to think about what's important and how you want to set it up. But the tool definitely exists.
Got it. So it basically depends on what tool you use, and they are, depending on that, the security. So that was the one of the questions from the audience. I actually wanted to ask, what's a typical reaction you get from developers about like no code? Do they get angry, or what are the usual expected sort of like, what are the reactions, Gonzalo?
From developers, I can talk about some developers I work with. They're really skeptical about the code, that they don't see the code, they can't move the code, they don't have the opportunity to change it, or so they're skeptical about what's under the hood and what they can do. That's one of the things. But there's like a lot of, or some no-code tools, like there's one in the front end or mobile that exports. Some of those export the code, so you can see the code and you can move the code and can like do anything else. On the other hand, like you were saying beforehand, the if it's going to take the developer jobs or the engineer jobs, it won't take them. It will create more, not only for the ones that don't know, the ones that know and do the hard work, but the ones that start, the people that start with code, no code, and wanted to learn code, they go to low code and then code. So that's one of the things that I already saw happening. A lot of no-code people that I know and that start no-code, that because they didn't want to learn code or couldn't learn code, they actually started learning like JavaScript and stuff like that to expand some of the no-code tools. So they're skeptical at first. The high-end are skeptical at first, and then when they see the opportunities, like the fast iteration, they want to do that, and they want to try it before they build something. So it's easier for them to try out. And then on the other hand, the ones that are starting and then see and understand how code works, they actually go to learn more code and then grow from no code to low code and then actually code.
Got it. So basically, no code could be the entry point for a person to learn and start coding eventually later on to do some more advanced, complicated stuff.
Exactly.
Cool. And still talking about the jobs and developers and designers, which are currently very, very high in demand. Do you think that the demand is going to plummet because the rise of no code, or there is going to be a high demand for designers and developers regardless, Patrick?
It's hard to say. I'm really aligned with what Emmanuel said about developers. It's not just like the developers will not be necessary for us in the no code. It's like they will just move to more important stuff. So, I mean, speaking from a perspective of an integration platform, what developers really like about the no code here is the integrations are tedious stuff. You need to learn APIs. You need to get ready for the deprecations, and there's a lot of stuff like this. And taking that away from the developers and maintaining that for them, figuring out the error handling for them, that's something that really makes those developers even more classified for a different job. So they don't have to focus on re-implementing the APIs, looking for bugs and refactor the stuff because of the technical debt. So, I mean, thanks to the no-code, developers would be able to focus on more important stuff, and that's like making the product different from the others.
Got it. Yeah, and that's I think an answer to, and I hope that it demystifies the question: will no code movement kill code? It doesn't seem like that. Code is being run everywhere, so developers are still definitely going to have jobs from what you've said, and I do believe that's true. there's actually one more question from the audience. Maybe I think Tom would be the best person to answer this. Have you had an experience with any of like bigger teams, enterprises that wanted to sort of like reskill the workforce, their team, with a no-code tool so they can, build more effective workflows within the team? Have you seen big teams doing that?
Yeah, increasingly. Recently, we do some work with companies who maybe like they're already using a load of these tools like siloed. So they'll be running like HubSpot with like Gmail and like a text messaging platform and then like an email provider. But like Patrick said before, like these, you shouldn't be like moving data like manually between all these things. So they have actually quite like intelligent like platforms like individually, but when they need like a new problem solved, they have to go away and then like get like another platform, which then runs like on its own. So they usually work like independently of each other. And then what companies like Integromat have been really good at is actually like connecting these two together and making that thing actually really simple for non-technical people to achieve. So what we've seen is we will like work with a company and just say, okay, here's what you've got. We can make like a much more efficient workflow by leveraging something like an Integromat or like a Zapier, for instance, and actually just like tie these together in a way that makes sense. So we like break down their processes and take all the manual processes and say, okay, now you don't need to copy that piece of an email into your database and then change the status of a deal. That'll just happen. And then you get notified about it. And now these apps actually just become smarter. And once people understand the concept between the trigger and the action and like how a tool like Integromat works, then you kind of like flick a switch in somebody's head and say, okay, how about like all these other processes that I do manually every single day, probably 100,000 times a month? Like, can this be automated? And then they go, oh, okay. Like, how about this? And they try and like automate everything. And they're like, okay, well, what's going on now? Now I don't understand what's happening. But it's easy to see how when you're in like big companies for just systems to get lot like stacked on top of systems and then just to become like chaos. And then they think if there isn't a niche bit of functionality in one system that they have to change the whole platform. Well, that isn't true, because now you can like augment what you've already got with these amazing integration tools. So I think ideally there's going to be, I foresee at least like one of these type of people in every business, like after a certain headcount, which is just responsible for like managing like these integrations, like setting them up, like training other staff on how to use them. Maybe you're connecting like a sales team or a recruiting team with like with a HR function, just making sure they're getting the right info at the right time and on time every single time. And just by using that internally, people just get familiar with these tools. So I think that's how people are actually just going to skill up.
Got it. Yeah. And it looks like that, the amount of automations, amount of apps, website that one can build, using no code is really, really big, and the space is growing. So that's really exciting to see. So my last question, because we're almost out of time, is probably around, what do you think is the future of no code? What's the next big thing, the next big problem that no code has to solve to get to the next level and grow? And what do you think, Emmanuel?
Don't say GPT-3.
Probably scale, like being able to just work at a massive scale. And at the end of the day, the validation of the technologies will happen when there will be like massive companies that people know about that are built on no-code technologies, and not just like having the usage we see today with a lot of smaller players or makers is fantastic, because that's the way to start. But for this technology to mature and be adopted by everyone, we need well-known franchise to be running on no-code technologies. The other thing I would say is I'm hoping that 5 years from now we don't talk about no code anymore. It's just a way to build things, and there's no code and no code. It's just if you want to build one of the applications that do not invent something particularly new, you just use a visual interface. and hopefully not no code. And then if you need to go deeper, you write code, because no code can be sometimes polarizing a little bit.
Got it. And this was more of an open question, so if you would like to answer, feel free to take over.
Yeah, I think I can answer from the integration platform point of view. I mean, we see exactly what Tom described. Like the customers figure out the first one or two integrations, and then they are like, "Wow, what else can we do with that?" And what we see a lot is customers or enterprises creating even more and more integrations. So it's becoming a bit more difficult to maintain all of those, and to also keep track of or how the integrations correlate together. So especially for us, the next big thing is going to be how to enable people or allow people to give people better insight of how those integrations and those no code stuff, how it correlates together. What's happening if I change this integration, how it affects another integration. So it's about aggregating or maybe creating another layer that will make easier the working with no-code integrations.
Just to add to that, if you don't mind, yeah, I think that's a really good point. It's something we've run into here. So we've got like 136 apps, for instance, running like most parts of the business. But if you are, say, like a single person doing that within a company, you are like the point of failure. So if nobody else knows how those apps operate and you haven't documented them properly with, say, like version control of like when you've changed them, then nobody else is going to know when it breaks. So let's say form submissions don't go through, which then don't trigger workflows, and you don't find out until like a certain point in time. But that's why Integromat does really well with error handling, which is great, and routing. So you almost got to like create your own like internal systems to actually log changes and log which automations do what, and make them readable for everybody to understand, like where do they live, who do I speak to change them, like what does it do. And actually Niels from Tray actually came up with a really good solution. They log all theirs like in a Notion doc, and it's very detailed about how they do it. But still, there's no overall good solution for managing this, which we could probably do with lending some traditional software engineering practices, because obviously your version control is in GitHub. So yeah, we could probably do with leaning on some of that.
Yeah, thanks for answering a question. Only Emmanuel has to go. So thanks, Emmanuel, for joining the discussion. Thanks for all your answers. It was amazing to have you. Thanks.
Thank you very much for having me. Sorry, I have to run.
No worries. Thanks.
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay, so amazing, guys, and thank you for the great moderation. Thanks, Emmanuel, that you was part of this. So right now we are stepping into the second part of this event. So right now we are give a word to the first startup founder. Right now it will be Andrew Vladoskin, who is the founder of NoCodeSetup.com. And he will have up to 3 minutes to pitch us his startup. And after that, please, if all of you guys could give him some meaningful advice or feedback, that would be really appreciated. So I'll just right now give a word to Andrew.
Hey, everyone. Well,
Hi.
Patrick,
Hey.
thanks a lot for the introduction. My name is Andrew. I'm the maker of No-Code Setup. No-Code Setup helps to find the right no-code tools to build your app without programming and without any hassle. If you are new to no-code development, the first problem you will see is that it's hard to find the right no-code tools. Well, the first problem is that by now there are more than 275 different no-code tools, and this number keeps growing. The second problem is that it's hard to figure out whether you need one particular no-code tool or a combination of no-code tools for your app idea. So no-code setup saves a few weeks of your time by making this choice much easier. Instead of digging deep into the no-code ecosystem, you can just pass a small survey about the app type that you want to build, and the no-code setup will send you no-code tools that are most suitable for your case. Though it all looks very simple, we have 720
different app types in our database, and for each app type, we have 2 sets of recommended no-code tools. So using the output, you can easily compare pricing plans and pros and cons of each of the recommended tool. And finally, a no-code setup calculates the monthly and the yearly costs of using these no-code tools. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me.
Okay, thank you, Andrew, for your time. Wow, thank you for your page. Amazing. Whew. And yeah, so guys, Boo, maybe you can start if you have any like the feedback to Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about the format. So I'm just wondering, is this like a startup type of like pitch, or it's just feedback on a type of a project, or what type of feedback should I give?
Yeah, so this should be like the feedback to the page of the startup which Andrew has or which the startup founders have.
Oh, okay. So like the pitch itself. I mean, yeah, I guess I kind of got what the sort of like you're doing, like recommending tools for the audience, for like the people, what type of like tools they should be using. However, I wasn't 100% clear on how the problem is important and how this could really get big, because from my point of view, I'm not sure. Is that really an important problem, or what do you think?
Well, first of all, I had this particular problem myself when I first knew about no code, and I've started to dig deeper into no code, trying to create my first project using no code tools. That's the exact problem that I've met. That there are different no code tools, and I just couldn't figure out which tool would be the best, most suitable for my app idea. And the second thing is that, well, for example, there's Airtable, there's Integromat, there's Bubble, there's Adelo, there's Glide. So do I need one particular tool, or I need a combination like Bubble and Integromat plus Airtable, for example? So that's the problem.
Yeah, my maybe follow-up question to that is, how do you plan on making money? Because I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's a yeah. Please, that's all.
That's my question. How you plan on making money from there, and how is it going to scale? How are you going to get your clients?
Well, this project started just as a side project. I just solved my own problem, and I wanted to share with the world the help people to start using no code in a more easy way to make a softer entry points, right, to no code development. The monetization question is very good one. I've tried one monetization model. I've tried to connect clients with no code developers, but I see that for my app this doesn't work because people are looking for no-code tools and for recommendations, but not for no-code developers. So the monetization question is an issue for me now. So I'm looking for the right monetization model.
I think just feedback I'd probably add is you think you'll need to have like something which you can like defend as like a business model. I think it's you have to like almost build your call it like your personal monopoly, because there's also lots of no code tools out there, and what's going to stop somebody who say might have like knowledge of all these tools just like whipping it up together and like serving it up themselves. So I think you've got to think of probably like an angle where you could like apply this to, or maybe like apply it to maybe a sector. specific thing. Maybe it's like enterprise use cases, or like a specific niche which you can like really like target down and either like sell as like a service or something. Perhaps I just think you have to have something which you can defend. So whether that's going to be like your it's like your product's 10 times better, or it's like 10 times cheaper, or you've got like some unique knowledge like in the area which nobody else has, or you've got like a network which nobody else can reach out to do things with. I think you just need to kind of like form like your own like angle on it, just because I think say like Gonzalo knows like epic amounts about so many different tools. Like what would be stopping him from saying like producing his own little like calculator? And if he already has like a bigger audience, would they just go to him first, sort of thing? So I think you just need to find like a bit of an angle and then kind of build like a personal moat around it, depending on what your unique knowledge is. That'd be my feedback.
Yeah, great feedback, thanks.
Okay, and my question is more like you mentioned, based on how do I feel, what are my expectations, then you recommend the no-code tools. And there's a lot of no-code tools, specifically for creating just the websites, like Bubble, Wix, Webflow, others. What's going to be the decision-making factor? Based on what are you going to recommend me one of those services?
To create my service, to create this app, I've created no-code tools typologization, and based on that, I've made a small survey that consists of 4 questions. So each user passes through the survey and gets the recommendations. These questions are, what are the skills your team is good at? The second question, what type of app you want to build, like a responsive web app, native mobile app, or a static website. And the third question is choose a particular app type, or you can also call it a business model of your app, like a marketplace or a community or a platform. And the fourth question is you can choose whether you want to accept payments in your app, or you don't need to accept any payments in your app. So based on these answers, my system picks the two sets of no-code tools that are most suitable for this case.
Couldn't this actually be a no-code thing? Like you could literally build this on top of like Airtable, maybe Typeform, something like that. Just my thoughts.
Well, actually, this service is built using Parabola, Airtable, Wix, and Typeform.
Cool.
Okay, amazing, guys. So thank you for feedback, and thank you, Andrew, for your time. And you will have actually after next 10 minutes, you are starting your mentoring sessions with Philip. So thank you very much. And right now we are hosting another guy here with Michael Musil, founder and CEO of Fire.dev. So Michael, the stage is yours.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, now.
Yeah, perfect. Hello, I'm Michael. I'm founder of Fire.dev. It's interactive web development platform, and it's basically no-code optimized for developers. Why do we need no-code for developers? We have noticed most no-code tools are primary for non-developers, but most of startups and product teams already have some developers. So we optimize our product for devs, while other roles can still contribute. Coding is not just about writing code, it's about experience. Experience with platform like a web browser in our case, knowing how API works, optimizing performance or testing. Why developers should use no-code and not just good old coding? Mostly to start projects faster and develop them much faster. It has much faster feedback, which is probably the most important aspect of programming, because you want to know if something works and if something doesn't work really fast. There is no setup, there is no infrastructure management, and it's easier to start with. But most importantly, it's about collaboration. UX designers can polish their pixel perfect designs, copywriters can write their catchy lines, marketers can adjust their call to action buttons, and they don't need to ask developers to do that because usually developers don't have time for that, and it can be a really important thing. How Fei is different from other no-code tools. As I said, it's optimized for developers. So we use standard programming concepts as variables, functions, components, strong type system, and proper testing. It's more scalable. You can use any JavaScript React library. It has one-click deployment, but also you can export it to your own infrastructure. It uses proper versioning like branches and pull requests. It can be integrated with existing JavaScript project. We are still in beta, but we have some first users, and they are already creating some startups. We built our homepage in Fei, which is must-have these days. And we already started rewriting actual Fei editor into Fei itself. We started with our design system, and we plan to rewrite it all in near future. So if you're a developer or interested in our product, check fei.dev, fae.dev, and ask for beta there. Thank you.
Okay, amazing, Michal. Thanks. I just adore the guys. Thank you. Thanks. And Tom, if you would like to give, I would like to give you a word so you can give a feedback to Michal.
So I think immediately my first question would be like, who are you targeting? Just because like actually what person would be using it? So it kind of falls in the middle of somebody who's not technical and a developer. It seems like somebody kind of edging towards the technical side. So, and if you're saying it's built for MVPs, like at what stage does an MVP not become an MVP? And would you get the same value in using a complete no-code tool, say like, I don't know, like Adalo or DraftBit or any of these other platforms with like a non-technical person, would you get like the same outcome to the point where then you hand it over to like a rebuild to engineers? So I think it's just like, it feels to me like an awkward spot in the middle, if that makes sense.
Yeah. We are kind of in the middle of no code and code, and we would like to target on teams mixed with developers and non-developers. It's like usually developers do the main thing, like the logic and like core of the functionality, but everybody else in the team can create their stuff, like designs, text, and so on. And it is optimized for developers mostly because there are already some developers in most startups and teams in companies. And we would like to let them know that it's not, it is really familiar to developers as they know the concept and they are used to them. But so we know it's they know it's powerful, and myself as developer, I would like to prefer something like this kind of visual programming stuff instead of that just specific editors. Like it's most common problems of developers on no-code tools. It's specific. It's not a structure view, and that's the main difference. You see the structure, not the result, and that's I think that's the main benefit for developers. Did it answer your question? Is it?
Yeah, I think for me it was just thinking about like who in like which person in which team at like what stage of the business would be using it. So if you're targeting like a team, like a startup team that's already established? Are you targeting the people who've like already got a product or haven't got a product at all? And if they haven't got a product at all, would you be targeting like the founders, or would you be targeting like would it be like, I don't know, like, and if the business is a bit bigger and better structured, like what teams would be like leaning on your software?
Okay. Yeah. Mostly for about the startups, it's mostly for early stage because you start developing everything in Fay. But it's it's mainly for them, but it's also for existing, because you can export some parts and integrate it into JavaScript code base. And in bigger companies, it's mostly about experimentation teams, like teams which are creating new products, because they can build the product whole in Fay. But also for example, for front-end teams with a lot of designers, so designers can contribute to the code base.
Got it.
Yeah, I think you should nail down the target person. Otherwise, you'll be building something for everyone, and then you won't target anyone specific. So it's hard to sell the benefit for them. It's hard to
Yeah.
sell them the better version of themselves. Like, people want to buy something that will like either take them time or save money or be a better person. So if you're targeting startups and then developer teams and then whatever, you're never targeting one specific or one problem specific. So maybe trying to nail that down and try to see that and which ones work better, which ones you have more on your database or working right now, and then really tailor that for those guys and really solve their problems instead of trying to solve it. At least for me, that's what I felt when you were answering Tom. You're targeting a lot of people, so maybe that's going to be a problem for you guys, so we can like diverse a lot and don't focus.
Yeah, thank you. It's a problem I think about almost every day, and it's really hard to find
just
like
pick
a
one now.
really small subset of that.
My advice would be pick one, try it out. Doesn't work, pick another one.
Yeah, but which one? What is the one? Like
pick one. Just pick one right now. Pick one and go for it, and then let's tailor it, and then do the other ones and see if it works.
There is, agreed. And by the way, I agree with what Tom and Gonzalo said, that even from your website, it looks like that you're trying to target too many use cases at the early stage that you are, and it's very tough to do. And actually, nailing one specific use case really well is always better. So, for example, if you haven't read the story of Superhuman, go ahead and read it. It's really amazing. They really just focused on founders that are very busy, and they wanted to a more efficient way to write emails, and that's why they also put a very high price at. Who the hell would pay $50 a month for an email client, right? And then, but right. Yeah, so that's sort of like they really nailed that like cohort of people, founders, business owners, C-level people within companies that. So that applies to you as well. If you can come up with a go-to-market strategy focusing on a very, very specific group of people with the right pricing, stuff like that, I think it will be better than trying to solve everything for everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to add my few cents, I cannot agree more with what Gonzalez said, because we made the same mistake 4 years ago. We started the integration platform as a tool to help anyone do anything, and this was a super bad decision. After a while, we decided to actually focus on different segments, to create the use cases, to actually get the feedback from the customers, to get to know the customers. Then we realized that the users and the customers are different people. So, this is really important.
It's just a choice paralysis sometimes. I think some people just like to say, okay, like, what do I need to do? And like, what do I need to use? So if you're creating, I don't know, like, let's say if you're just starting out in no code, for instance, just learn these 5 tools. Then, okay, great. So I liked using like the mobile app tools. So maybe I'm going to explore the other options to do that. So that's just like one example. I think like what you've built, just something like a read through, is like clearly it can do like so much stuff. So I'm under like no illusion that technically it's like an incredible product to do everything. But then if it can do everything, and everyone's like, and then somebody advertises to say just product managers for creating MVPs for new internal app prototype, someone's going to go, okay, that's bang on exactly what I'm looking for, because the headline matches exactly like my use case. I'm going to choose that rather than kind of trying to advertise out to everybody. So yeah, just echoing what Gonzalo, Patrick, and Vu said.
Yeah, and I would absolutely underline what the guys told you, basically, because we are as well in daily contact with the startups. And, once some of the founders are coming to us and saying, hey, our product or service is for anyone or for everyone. But this mindset will not move you, as fast as it would be to something would make sense for some particular kind of group, and as well won't help you to your business plan, especially. So I think the best way, as guys mentioned, just to pick, some target group and just test it, and optimize and analyze, after that, you'll proceed to the stage where you see, hey, okay, so this is where I would like to go. And this is the needs, this is the target group, which I would like to focus. And there is your core competence. Okay, so Thank you very much, Michal. Thank you, and enjoy your mentoring session afterwards. Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
And right now, we are hosting our third startup founder. It's a CEO and a founder of Superface, Radek Novotný. So Radek, the stage is yours.
Hi guys, thanks for having me here. My name is Radek, and as mentioned, CEO and co-founder of Superface. I want to say first that I'm coming from business world. I built few companies. We built a lot of apps. We had millions of users all over the world. And we need low code and no code because business need it. It's not that the technology allows this, it's because business want to create better products sooner, faster, and cheaper. So no code and low code is definitely the next step, and business is very looking forward, and I think it will be main part of digital transformation. And back to my business, back to Superface. Superface stands for super interface. We are building autonomous interfaces for any business. I'm doing this with world-known experts, Denek. He is an API expert, and we have in the advisory board Jakub Neshetřil, which is colleague of Denek, and he exited in his startup Apiary into Oracle. We have also Mike Emundsen, which is well-known API expert and technology master, which drives new technology. I would love to show you, and maybe Patrick, you can show my screen only. Today the world looks like the phone connected to many connectors. So if you're building an application of today, you're on average, you need 15 integrations, 15 different integrations in average. Each integrations means different developers. It's custom integrations, and you need to build it by your own. You can use some integration platforms, of course, but they don't have access for digital capabilities of any provider. So if you're building an app, be ready that you will, and professional app, be ready that you will need at least 15 different integrations. And from the business side, it costs a lot. It costs, of course, time, but it costs a lot of money. So to integrate one API, you need to reserve from 1,000 to 15,000 USD in average. If you're building, if you have some digital capabilities and selling it, you need to prepare 15,000 and or 150K USD just to distribute the digital capability. So in average, if you're building an application like some type of system, you need to reserve to 100K and probably half year of work of developers to build it. All over in global, there are 24 million developers and 11 million that are developing the integration. So we can say that almost half of them need to develop integrations, or they go to work to integrate some digital capability in their product. I did the research of many companies, and I can say that it's from 10 to 30% of all development costs goes just to integrations. So we can imagine how much money we spend every year just on the integration, just to build custom channels from one machine to other machines. In the next 10 years, there will be 2 trillion USD generated by integrations by APIs. So that's a lot of money. And so if you do the integrations, it begins with the business, not the technology. The business needs to find the right provider of digital capability. The business needs to find it on Google, needs to go to the website, choose the right one based on terms, conditions, based on pricing, take the documentation and set it to developers and let them develop custom build integration. That's and that there are lines of code that you have. So you can imagine that even simple task like send the text message means first search right provider, contract him, and send the text message, and use the API, use the code to do the task. And there are like 10 millions of different use cases all over the world that you may to connect, and it's very hard to connect it via business and then via the technology. And then Zdenek was in the API world and talking about the autonomous integrations. And the main problem with the integrations of today is that APIs are made by humans for humans. You need people that open the machine and connect other machine by hand. And you need other people from other side that allows to open the machine. And also you need to maintain the connection, the tunnel. So each API is different custom-based tunnel. And it's all because APIs are made by human for humans. And then we decided that we think that there is a time now to create new type of protocol that allows machines to connect machines autonomously. And I can show you on some example here that the task, which usually take days or 10 days, can be done in milliseconds. So you can connect to one provider by usual API. Then if you decide to connect other provider, you need to reprogram the integration. With Superface, it's done autonomously. So the machine decide which digital capability the machine needs, what the business needs, contract the machine. So we are talking about digital sales of machine, so machine-to-machine deals, and connect the machine to use the digital capability. So at the end, you're just telling machines, I want to send text messages, I want to get the weather forecast, and the machine find the right provider based on price or some other filters, contract him, and connect him. I have here a small example of what we are building out. That's the future. We are in the proof of concept now, but some part of this visualization start working. So let's say that we want to send the cheapest as possible text message to a phone number start with UK prefix. So first of all, as a human, you need to find the provider with the cheapest price of text message. Then you need to have the documentation, contract, and then to develop the integration. And this is how it looks today. So we say to machine, send text message to that phone number. Superface found the right provider. We choose criteria, cost, and success rate. We choose the right one and send the text message. No code needed. So Superface will be in beta at the beginning of next year. We are building integration platform, which any developer can connect actually. So it will be focused firstly on the technological companies and technological guys, and then we will focus on the business, as we think that the superface can bring, if we save hours of developers or months of developers, we think that there will be business model.
Okay, thank you very much, Radek, and back to our panelists. Yeah, so please go ahead if you have any feedback.
I think that it's really exciting what you're building. It looks like you're trying to build like a Zapier on top of APIs.
Actually, it's totally new layer over the API. We're creating new language, new protocol that use the API, but use it in autonomous way. So we can map the API so that machine understands the digital capability which are inside the API. So we are building language that allows machines to understand what's inside other machines, what's inside other business, let's say.
I have to say this is firmly outside of my wheelhouse, so I wouldn't even try and leave a comment or provide any feedback. So I don't know if Patrick is probably more well versed to tackle this one.
Yeah, this is definitely exciting. I think my my head was 100% busy during the presentation. You know, thinking of all the integrations that we build, and if it's even possible to do such a thing. And really, I mean, the example with the messages that makes sense. I mean, the concern is privacy here, definitely. Because you know, in normal world, especially in the enterprises, and we discussed that in the panel, you usually need to go through the assessment and you need to cover all the legal stuff and everything, and this way the machine just decide which way the data goes through. So it's like I can see a huge privacy issue. Can you comment on this?
Yeah, Patrick, this is a very nice question. Actually, we are not in the middle. That's first. We are using actual API, actual terms conditions. So we are like we are helping businesses to meet, to contract, and to connect. So it's up to both sides to create their own security policy. We are just helping them to connect. We are building open source SDK, which will be open next year, probably. And this SDK, you will implement it into your code. It will be open sourced. So that's we think that how we can approach the market. But definitely, there will be some security issues depending of the, let's say, complexity of APIs, of what you want to allow machines to do, definitely.
Maybe one piece of it. Sorry, Patrick.
No,
sorry.
Go ahead, Ludo. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to give one piece of advice. This seems like you know, very few investors understand this. Very few, and not all of them. And you will need a lot of money to build this, as you mentioned, open source, and you probably need resources to have this running. And that's why I guess you need to identify those investors. Some of them have already invested in API. I know Jakub. But I think what's going to be challenging for you is to sort of like be explaining what this means in a context of, you know, someone who doesn't really understand this that much. For example, I've heard a pitch from Gatsby, the person, you probably know the JavaScript library. They said something like, hey, we're going to be 3% of the internet. Our library is going to be in 3% of the internet. It's like that number is massive, right? So if you can build that into your pitch somehow, that would be, I think, really a little more easy to understand. Maybe like selling to investors, maybe even.
Thank you. This was not the investor pitch.
Got it.
I wanted just to show you what we are doing in general way. We've got the investment, or we are getting the investment today. We are using different boards and different numbers, actually. The beauty of Superface is not, it's beginning with the technology, but it's end with the possibility to create something like Amazon for digital capabilities. Because today, you're able to buy any physical stuff on the internet, but you're not able to buy on one place any digital capability, any digital service. There is a big market missing. So, and it's because the technology doesn't allow it today. You need to create the APIs for any digital capability. That took weeks, months. But with the Superface, we are allowing to create new markets, and one of the markets can be Amazon for digital capabilities. That's our pitch for investors.
Nice. Congrats on the round. You mentioned you closed the round today, right?
Yeah. We are closing it. Lawyers are blocking everything.
How much did you raise? If you can tell?
It's more than 1 million euros in pre-seed. Nice. So we have the runway for 1.5 years. We have Western countries valuation. So let's say we are happy. On the other side, we know how much hard work we are standing in front of.
Congrats! That's amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, Gonzalo, do you have any thoughts on this?
I'd make it easier or friendlier to present. I found that the presentation was a bit like all around the APIs and how it goes and everything, and fairly technical. I think it would be easier to explain people like you explain how to make a cake. It's like get a use case and then show it how it works. Like this person goes here, this person has a problem. Like he wants to send a message cheap as possible, and then it goes like there. And so the old way and now the Superface way. So it's like 30% faster, or it will save you whatever money, and it will say the goal like out of the box, so people can understand. At least for me, it would be easier to understand as like what's the problem, how you solve it, and what's the gain for me. So
thank you. That makes sense.
The market and everything, and then the pitch or the demo at the end, really fast, really on the text side is like, okay, I can understand because I'm a technical side and I know how those stuff work and how integrations work, but regular people won't understand. Maybe it's not for regular people, but I think it would be great to anyone to understand it, so they can like sell to their boss or something.
Okay, so thank you very much, all of you guys, as well, that you made it to this point and to our final founder. So thank you, Radek, for your pitch. It was quite longer, but I can imagine for investor that is quite a bit different wording. But thanks, and once more as well as Wu, congrats for your funding. So thank you very much. Woo! Thanks.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah. Good luck. And so as well, you, Wu, Patrick, Gonzalo, as well, Emmanuel, who is not with us, and Tom, all of you guys, thank you that you made the time, not only for the panel, but as well for this, I think, really meaningful feedback to these 3 startup founders. So thank you very much. As well, this thing will be showed on the YouTube, so I'll share with all of you guys afterwards. And thank you, all of you who stayed to this moment with us, and we hope that you enjoyed all of this event, and looking forward for our next session, which will be 23rd of September, which we will have with One Esport, the company from Singapore about esport. And we'll have like the top 3 players in the world about esports who will join us on this discussion. So just follow us and see you on our next online event. Thank you guys, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.